while I didn't make any like reading goals this year, one thing I really wanted to try to do was read all of my pre-orders, because I have a very bad habit of being like, I need this book right now, and then it just sits over there forever and I don't get to it. I got this book yesterday and I read it yesterday and I want to talk about it. It's called Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, The History and Persistence of Our Deadliest Infection. It was great. I pre-ordered this book when, should it be in the background the whole time? I pre-ordered this, it's gonna fall. It's fine. I pre-ordered this book when I was researching Richard Feynman last year because his wife died of tuberculosis, his first wife, in like the 40s, and I thought tuberculosis was like a 1700s disease, and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, the same rabbit hole I think John Green has gone down in his life, and I pre-ordered this book because I wanted to read it. Also, I am just interested in diseases and disease books and the history of diseases. If you watch my science channel, I did this whole video about the story of insulin, like the discovery of diabetes and the discovery of the treatment for diabetes, and kind of looking forward to, can you even cure diabetes? Is that a thing that you can do? And I find it fascinating. And no spoilers, there are a couple of other books in this genre that I would like to talk about this year in videos. So like this is right up my alley of things. However, this book was not at all what I expected. The standard format for this is a genre, disease books. I love reading them, is that you have kind of a personal account, like someone discovering they have this illness, and then a history of how the people with the disease are treated, how their symptoms appear, like how long it's been happening in society. And then you have about 300 pages that are pure biochemistry, like what does the bacteria look like? How does it move? How is it transmitted from body to body? What are the R values? Here are some graphs. And then you'll go into like the scientists and how the scientists use the tools of the time to discover the bacteria and maybe come up with a treatment or a diagnosis tool or something. This book was not that at all. It really subverted my expectations of the genre. This book was kind of John Green's personal journey with discovering and then caring about tuberculosis, and it's an almost defensive like argument of why you should care about it. Like, it is not a disease from the 1700s, it's a disease from right now, and he wants to convince you to care about it just as much as he cares about it. And his main reason, what is centered in this book, is that human people suffer and die from tuberculosis, and that alone should make you care for it. And it was just such, it's not what you expect from this genre. I was kind of annoyed at the start of this book because he would just drop things like, hey, there are different kinds of TB, and it shows up differently with different symptoms and different outcomes and different diagnoses and different treatments, and then nothing, like a single sentence. And like, I know about the different types of TB and the different treatments and how those appear in people, but I want to read about it in the book. And none of that was in the book. And so I was like 30 pages into this book, and I was just like, this book is missing about 300 pages of science that I want to read about. But this book is not that. This book is about people. It's a people-focused book. And it really upended what I expect from this genre, and I was so impressed with how this was done. This book highlights the story of tuberculosis by taking us on the journey of one family in particular, this mom and son that John Green knows personally. As we're kind of learning little tidbits of historical information about TB, we are also learning about this family and kind of how every step of the way this family didn't have to be impacted by TB. Like, there was a war in Sierra Leone that shouldn't have happened, and because of the war, everyone is like scrounging for food, and malnutrition can make TB worse. And the Ebola virus killed a huge part of the healthcare workforce, and so when you want to get treated for TB, there's no one to do it. And treatment, which, cures TB, a disease that has a cure, by the way, it removes all the suffering, and it's run by a for-profit industry. And because of all those reasons, this family in this book has they're greatly impacted by this disease, and they didn't have to be. And John Green wants you to care about that, and he does a great job. And reading this, I realized that John Green is a much better person than me, because this book is not an angry book. And if I were to write this book, I would be quite angry at people. I've made this video before. People literally make medicines that other people need to stay alive. And those people, those human beings that run those companies, feel totally comfortable charging exorbitant amounts of money, inhibitively exorbitant amounts of money, and being like, well, some of them will die, but I need a yacht. Those people exist, and they're evil, but John Green doesn't mention those people, because fuck those people, because instead we want to care about the people who are hurting. And this book is hopeful. This book convinces you that we can solve this. We can do it. This book is like, look at this doctor working his ass off to get these pills that exist that can solve this problem to these kids. Like, what a hero. Which is such a positive way of looking at this problem. This brings me to the writing, which I was really impressed with. I have read a couple of John Green's young adult books, and I think I read them when I was too old. I got over the young adult genre when I was like 15. Like, I just wasn't into it anymore. And so I don't think I liked those. But I mean, I wasn't the audience at the time. But the writing in this book, I don't know how to describe it. It's like expertly crafted to make you feel feelings without being like misery porn. It's people focused. He doesn't use the tool that books in this genre, well, he turns it on his head. He talks about how TB is dangerous, but like, you don't have to worry about it. But what if there was a super bug, and then if wealthy nations got TB again, we would suddenly have to worry about it. And by not treating it now, by not eradicating the one we can treat, we are allowing it to like evolve and perhaps become something worse. But then he kind of just says, but that's a future problem. The problem right now is that people are dying from this disease we can cure, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't affect you. It should affect you because it affects them, because they're human people. Like, there's a quote in this book where he says, imagine you're in a doctor's office and the doctor tells you you have a cancer that has a 92% success rate of treatment, and you could totally be fine, but we can't get you that treatment. And he says that's not fair, but it's not about you. People are living that in real life, and it's not fair, and we should help. This book wasn't about pitying these people. It was about discussing the circumstance. It was pointed to the actual problem. He calls out specifically like the medical racism that is the cause of this disease not being treated. That is the reason we haven't eradicated TB, like a thing we could totally do. And I just really liked it. I thought it was really good. It wasn't at all what I expected, but man, I flew through it. I really enjoyed it. And when I read a nonfiction book like this, I often spend the next couple of weeks just like facting people, and there's a lot in here. Like the Bronte sisters, Stetson hats, Sherlock Holmes. Something that was really interesting was how when AIDS started springing up in Africa in the 80s, they first saw it as like a huge surplus of TB infections, because the AIDS virus limits your ability to fight infections. So if you had latent TB, all of a sudden you're showing TB symptoms. And that was just so interesting, because like, of course that happened, but I never thought about it. But I don't want to go into the details, because like, I want you to read the book. I don't want to tell you the facts. I want you to, it was a really good, it's a really short read. I really liked it. I have mentioned a couple times that this book subverted my expectations of a genre that I really like, but it did have my favorite moment. I'll just read you a little section. So this is a quote from one of the doctors working at the hospital. What makes me want to remain a tuberculosis doctor is that I see a lot of helpless people. Most of the people coming in with a diagnosis are from poor and marginalized families. What encouraged me is they come in almost dead, and then you find the right regimen. It is complete magic. After a few months, you see a patient who was paralyzed because of bone involvement walk out of the hospital. So these anti-TB drugs are magic. I cried. This is my favorite moment from these books. I've talked about it with the diabetes book, how some scientists spend their life dedicated to finding this treatment, and when it works, dead children come. I'm gonna cry right now. For the people who have like symptomatic active tuberculosis, they will die, right? It is a death sentence, and there's this treatment and they come alive again. Like, imagine taking your child to some clinic, getting them diagnosed with TB and knowing that they will die, and then some doctor. I'll cry right now. That's my favorite moment of these books, and it's in here. And man, this book, this is the book I needed right now, because unlike diabetes, which like hopefully people have access to insulin and they can treat it, TB is not yet there yet. And this book is hopeful. It made me hopeful for the future for the first time in months. Like, this is a thing we could do. We could eradicate TB. All these people die every single year, and we could do something about it. I know the algorithm doesn't like it when you post positive reviews, but I love to make a positive review. This book was not at all what I expected. 5 out of 5 stars. I really recommend it, especially if this would be your first book in this genre, because it's really not as science heavy as the other books, and it's just lots of stories. And again, it's written really well. All the history, all the treatments are weaved between this story of this family, and I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to say what I was going to say. Really recommend it. 2 things though. The first thing, I don't understand color theory. I don't know if this will pick up. I hate the color of this book. I love a yellow book, but this yellow is, I think it's intentional. It's very phlegm colored. Like, it's disgusting. You don't want to look at it. Because, tuberculosis is disgusting. You don't want to look at it. You want to eradicate it. And so maybe I love it. Maybe I love the design of this book, because it looks like a beautiful sunshine yellow on camera, I think. In my hands, it's like a very sickly, gross looking yellow. Also, my only complaint about this book is the same complaint I had for, where is it? I don't know where it is. It's my favorite book from last year, Ta-Nehisi Coates' book. It had a link to further reading and more like citations and stuff. And I need books, physical objects, to be future proof. And I don't, like, a website will disappear. I don't want things to be on websites. I want them to be in this book. And this book did not have citations for the information. And as a scientist, I don't think that's great. I'm not saying I don't think the information is true. Here, I have an example. Let me read it to you. It says, "We know consumption has been with us for a very long time. Mummies in ancient Egypt from 5,000 years ago showed the telltale deformities that accompany tuberculosis of the bone. TB was one of the first infectious diseases present in both Americas and Afro-Eurasia before the Columbian Exchange began in 1492. And I was just like, where are you getting this information? I want to read about this. Where is it from? What book did you read? Now, not in the acknowledgments, like, there's a further reading section. He does list, like, if you want to learn more about this, read this book. If you want to learn, but I want to know specifically. Do you know what I mean? Here's the one that really got me. Archaeological evidence indicates that TB was in the Americas at least 2,000 years ago. And then there's a 6, like a little hypertext 6 with a footnote. And I'm like, oh, the footnote is going to tell me where he got this information. The footnote says, it seems likely that seals infected with TB carried the disease from Afro-Eurasia to the Americas. But there's no study. There's no author. Who gave you that information, John Green? I want to know about the seals with TB. And, like, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying to future-proof a book like this, I want this to link to another document that shows where they got that information. And it just doesn't. And I don't know. I do think this book was intended to be very reader-friendly. It very specifically is not the same as all the other books in the genre. Very specifically, it is people focused and not like science focused. You are not going to read this and learn how TB has evolved. You are not going to read this and learn how TB infections lay dormant in your body. You're just going to get like an overview. And that's totally fine. I mean, it's more than fine. And what made me really enjoy this book. I just wish there was a little more information where specific pieces of information were gotten. But 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. End of video. Okay, bye.